Hello again. This is Tammy Blakemore. I'm with RF Testing Labs, and we're doing an R and Friends podcast. We're going to pick up where we left off with Dr. Tim talking about probiotics, the probiotic labeling. Okay, another question that we have, since we've got Dr. Tim here, and at the trade show, we were together talking, and somebody walked up to the booth and said, "Well, you're talking to the labeling expert." So if I've got the labeling expert on the call, we're going to talk about labeling just for a second. We don't have to talk a lot about it, but we can, give some highlights. Let you highlight some of this on the label because, our lab is testing label claims, so it works together.
Yeah, I got to bless those people's hearts who have such wonderful things to say. I couldn't do it without them being out there and thinking that way. Labeling is one of those topics just in general that honestly, many brands miss. I mean, you can grab 80% of the labels on the market, supplement fact box, nutrition fact box. It's probably got an error on it, and it's not going to be serious enough to drive a recall. And it's just people not understanding 101, and then it kind of gets passed down. I don't know if it's graphic designer language or something, and they all have their own secret pack how they think these are supposed to look. But labels are pretty simple, and when you start putting them together, you can combine food labeling with dietary supplement labeling. And some of these things like mandatory nutrients that are found in significant amounts have to be reported, but the mandatory nutrients that are not in a significant amount cannot be reported. And in this particular example here, inulin, there's 5 milligrams of inulin. Maybe inulin can be a fiber, and if you had a 0.5 gram of fiber, you might be interested in putting that in your B2 section of a supplement fact box, right? That might mean something. Oh, I have a 0.5 gram of fiber, but when you only have 5 milligrams, we're not allowed to call it fiber and put it in the B2 section, but you certainly can formulate, and you can have 5 milligrams and you can put it down here in the B3 section. If this was in the B2 section, that being below the medium thickness bar and the heavy thickness bar, then that's where you'd see a total fiber content, but it has to be at least a 0.5 gram or you can't report it. And so you get some fun stuff, but then we can't call it fiber because it would have to be at the 0.5 gram amount, but we can call it inulin and we can put it in the B3 ingredient. So that's kind of playing off, knowing the two different, it's the same reg, but it's sort of the different sections within the reg. And the other common things that people sometimes struggle with really is recognizing that there's 4 different thicknesses of bars, horizontal bars. General ratio 1, 2, 3, 7. Anytime you're going to separate B3 ingredients or nutrients, it's going to be your hairline bar. This is probably the hairline thickness is also the bar you're going to put around the FDA's descriptive disclaimer statement. If you make a descriptive claim that's neither a nutrient content claim or a qualified health claim, then you're going to have that disclaimer, and you probably want to use that same hairline thickness bar. The next bar that's twice as thick as the hairline bar is the supplement fact perimeter box. Like the whole thing that goes around it should be twice as thick as the horizontal hairline. There's only going to be 4 of those sides. And then the medium thickness bar, it's always the one that's below amount per serving and above whatever the first nutrient is, whether it jumps right to the B3 nutrients or you have a B2 section like this. That one's typically 3 times thicker than the hairline bar. And then your last bar is the heavy thickness bar, and that's the one below the servings per container, above the amount per serving daily value. It will separate the B2 section from the B3 section if you have it, and then it would be the last heavy bar before the footer statement. And then you usually don't have more than 3, and you're at least going to have 2. Some columns that you might call a running column style, you might see a couple of extra heavy bars, but they would kind of be placeholders just like they are here. So there's only 4 sizes. The word supplement fact box always has to go across the top as close to as the whole width as possible. You cannot bold serving sizes or servings per container. You aren't required to put the servings per container when your serving size is 1 unit, and the principal display panel, the net content statement tells you how many are in it, 50 capsules or 60 capsules, 30 capsules, something like that. But you can always have it there. The amount per serving daily value always has to be bolded. You can't abbreviate daily value, but if you abbreviate percent daily value up here, then you're going to restate it in the footer statement here, whether it's daily values or daily value. You would open a parentheses, put the DV and close it. A lot of people also miss like some of these 3-point indentation. If you're going to have a name, and then it's going to run, and the subcomponents are going to run on, you always shift it over 3 points from the margin established by sort of the first character in that line. This plays into the B2 section as well, like under total carbohydrates, you might get total sugars indented, and then if you had added sugars, you would indent another 3 point from that. So you end up like 6-pointed indentation from the column that's out here with the total carbohydrate. These kind of columns, the rightmost column here is everything's meant to be adjusted to the right side, not centered. The amount per serving also, it's meant to be adjusted to the right side. Different spellings and stuff. Sometimes people try to add words here or take stuff away. Really, this is pretty much it. You're going to say the percent daily values are based on 2,000 calorie diet. The reg says put a period after it, so I put a period after it. Daily values not established, again, period after it. And you get to pick the symbol, right? Whether it's an asterisk or double asterisk or a dagger or double dagger, a paragraph symbol. I mean, you could do a smiley face if you wanted to. I'm kind of wonder why some people don't do like little Erlenmeyer flasks or some Bunsen burner or something fun like that.
And then just for the record, just while we're talking, state your reg number that you're getting this from.
I'm kind of just fumbling through Title 21 CFR 101, and a majority of what we're talking about is listed in 101.9 for the food, and for like the B2 section, and then dietary supplements specifically are 101.36 is where they start.
Okay.
Tammy, real quick before we leave the label conversation, and while we have Dr. Tim on the line with us, the label expert, I'd like to ask him a question. Dr. Tim, you alluded to earlier when we were talking about the label and the FDA warning box came up, and you had mentioned that it may or may not need to be on the label. So in the realm of creating labels, Co-Create Marketing Strategies creates labels for the human and nutrition industry. And that box is often a hot topic. So while we have you here on the line with us, the label expert, I'd like for you to bust the myth that people believe it should always be on the label, regardless, as maybe a security factor. I'm not certain why they believe that, but I'd like for you to answer that question of why or what marketing messaging would not require that FDA warning box to be applied to a label.
Well, as the name implies, I think I can come up with a scenario. As the name implies, right, it's a descriptive claims disclaimer. And so you really need to be making a claim. And a lot of people call these kind of like structure function claims, like it's meant to have a function on the body. So if your claim is, most sustainable, highest quality ingredients to achieve your goals in life, that's not a structure function claim, right? I'm not trying to talk about how this product is going to impact the health of your body or the function of your body or a system within your body, but it's high quality ingredients, sustainably sourced from the best businesses on the planet. It wouldn't warrant the descriptive claims, but you are talking about ingredients and you're talking about how you might want to incorporate it into your daily. But it's not, supports the immune system or supports the health, the circulatory and bones. And so that's kind of it. And you might, some foods, when you get into hydration claims or energy claims, they're a little bit benign, and the FDA has been somewhat flexible, like with the food product, because if you have a nutrition fact box, you cannot make a descriptive claim. You're allowed to make nutrient content claims, you're allowed to make qualified health claims, but you cannot make a structure function claim on on a food product with a nutrition fact box. That's misbranding right there, because you're trying to represent a dietary supplement, but yet are you hiding behind the relaxed GMPs of food, and not the testing and the specifications that are in the supplement? Like, are you trying to play that edge a little bit? And so when a brand is setting up a product, like, do you want to make descriptive claims or do you not want to make descriptive claims? And some products don't really need them, but that might dictate then, if you don't want to make claims, well, then make it a food and then just follow your food GMPs, right? But if you want to make descriptive claims, then you're going to want to follow a supplement. And but anyway, like a rehydration drink, I think was what I was kind of talking about. I mean, no one's going to argue if you're going to put 10 grams of powder in 12 ounces of water, that's going to hydrate you, right? 12 ounces of water is hydrating. It's not really a structure function of the body other than like improving or something. It's just, you need hydration. You need the hydration daily. And then like source of electrolytes, that's not it. But, for muscle cramps and endurance, performance, like all of a sudden that's a structure function claim. And they could take issue, or they likely would take issue with that. But if you're just talking about in general, if I was to eat, have salt, that was going to be good for rehydrating faster than someone that only drinks water. So having those electrolytes in the beverage is going to be good for you. But so those two topics for those kind of reconstituted products usually aren't flagged by the FDA, and they don't take too many issues. But if you start getting into, again, benefiting your health, achieving health goals, achieving desired performance, then that's going to just fall right into a dietary supplement descriptive claim.
Sounds good.
And of course, we don't know exactly what every FDA auditor is going to be doing something different. We don't know what they're exactly going to write people up on, but it just kind of gives us an idea of what they've looked at in the past and what you've seen.
Yeah, your field investigator can make a whole world of difference. One thing to stand back on, though, is like you do have Dr. Kara Welsh at the center. She's still overseeing labeling, and she was trained by the best and the brightest in the industry, and she's disseminated that knowledge down to her staff. And so, submitting structure function claims as you're supposed to under 10192, you're getting good feedback. If you can make a claim or not make a claim, she'll write you a courtesy letter right away if she thinks you're overstepping your boundaries. But you can use that notification process to test the water. Sometimes you might write a claim 3 different ways, all for the same formula, and submit it, and then they'll send you a letter back, and they might complain about one of them or 2 of them or all 3. But if you don't receive a courtesy, then they didn't object to it. And so you can kind of play with those claims a little different ways. So, and then, and quite frankly, you're obligated to submit those structure function claims, and you should have that submission before any food or before any inspector shows up in your facility. And if you have that on file, they show up and they start giving you a hard time. There's really no better answer than, I submitted all those already to your boss's boss's boss, and they didn't take objection to it. So are you sure you want to keep going down this road? And that usually kills the conversation. But the law says you're meant to submit those within 35 days of going to market. And I don't see them write people up very often for not doing that. But it certainly is great support for the boots on the ground. Someone comes in there that might not have the calibration training or the recent training that the center has. And so that's a good document to be able to pull out to support why we're saying that. So, to everyone out there, please submit your structure function claims, whether you even created the product and it's only a formulation, a thought in your formulation's head, or it's a product that's already been on the market for 4 or 5 years. You should submit those things in just to combat maybe some of the less trained field investigators that are out there going around, and they have a chip on their shoulder too.
Wow, what a great tip. Again, thank you for sharing all this and explaining labeling and some of these other important tips.
My pleasure. And I need people like you to keep doing what you're doing so they can introduce me to people. You can introduce them to me so I can keep doing what I'm doing. So it's definitely symbiotic. And, you don't need to learn this stuff. You're running a lab and you're taking care of a lot of people and you take it very serious. And so
Yeah.
please don't expand your capabilities.
No, we aren't going to. We've got our wheelhouse.
Terrific.
Wow, that was a great discussion. Thanks, Dr. Tim, for sharing your perspective and giving us a lot of good information. Thanks, Melanie, for taking the questions. Keep the questions coming, and we'll keep addressing them in different segments. Till next time.